She raised her hand, summoning 4 glittering star state treasures, which were gloves, armor, a sword, and a saber. Obviously, she had prepared them for Suiping and his allies. The 4 treasures flew to them, and the leader girl gave the saber to Suiping. She said, "While this saber is not as good as your secret treasure, it's a fine star state secret treasure nonetheless. If it's useless to you, you can sell it for money, astral crystals, or secret techniques." While those treasures were valuable, they wouldn't be appealing to the Star Lords, so she simply offered her treasures to them. "Thank you." Suiping nodded and accepted it. The saber may be useful. He could give the bone saber to the little skeleton and use the new saber himself, unless he merged with the little skeleton at critical moments. "Thank you, leader." The other 3 thanked her and then also cupped their hands before Suiping in admiration. If Suiping hadn't won, they couldn't have possibly gotten any of the fruits of law. At the same time, the purple-robed young man returned to an alliance. His amazing performance had attracted a lot of attention. Everybody saw which alliance he returned to. "Mr. Singh, no need to be bothered by such an insignificant contest," one of the Star Lords comforted the grim purple-robed young man. The other Star Lord also nodded and said, "Indeed. In my opinion, if you had used all your trump cards, you might have gotten the Tree of Laws. Besides, that guy was a level higher than you anyway. The gap between the Fate State and the Star State is huge." The purple-robed young man remained sullen and silent. "The gap was huge? Of course I know this. However, ever since his childhood, he had always challenged and beaten opponents beyond his level, until this day. He could comfort himself with the level gap, but he was still regretful. If he were stronger, he might have been able to suppress such a star state genius. Not enough. I'm not strong enough." The purple-robed young man coldly gazed at the man far in the distance. At this moment, a Star Lord suddenly said, "The barrier is loosening." The other Star Lords sensed it too and looked at the depths of the garden. They immediately sent their followers back into their small worlds and marched forward. "Let's join them," the leader girl quickly said. She waved her hand, and Suiping and Father Time instantly flew into her small world. She then moved forward and traversed 1,000 meters in one step. All the other Star Lords also moved out. As they went down the trails in the garden, they eventually saw a colorful, shivering barrier that blocked the end of the road. There, 2 Star Lords were cracking the barrier with glowing astral runes on their skin. "What about it? How much longer will it take?" someone instantly asked. One of the Star Lords who were cracking the carrier opened his eyes and said, 30 minutes, at most. This is a barrier from the primordial times. It is only recorded in ancient classics. We couldn't have cracked it if we hadn't read as many books and joined efforts. "Thank you for your hard work," said the leader of the Huang Alliance courteously. The other people also thanked them while acting politely. The Star Lord, however, said with indifference, "No need to thank us, we're not doing this for free. Actually, we don't need much. All of you are free to enter if each of you give me 2 Star Lord rank secret treasures, which will be a reward for our work." All the Star Lords changed their expressions, from appreciation to anger. "You're too greedy. Even people like us don't have many of them, and you want 2 treasures from each of us? That's too much." "Exactly. You're too greedy. 2 for each of you? If we do as you say, each of you would get 10 Star Lord treasures. I thought you were being altruistic, not this shameless. Are you blackmailing us using the barrier as a bargaining chip? Isn't it too demeaning? You're risking offending all of us." All the Star Lords seemed dissatisfied. "Cut the nonsense." The Star Lord who was cracking the array said with an angry and solemn tone, "Give us what we want if you want to get inside, or we can all just stay here. We've been cracking this array and practically giving it away to you when you were fighting for the Tree of Laws. Now you decide to be petty about the ticket fees. We can afford the wait. Feel free to crack the barrier on your own." Let's just wait until the divine residence is closed and the ascendant state experts leave, then we can just return empty-handed. Yeah, let's, said a Star Lord furiously. Let's all return empty-handed, someone echoed resolutely. The leader of the Huang Alliance said casually, I can afford the wait too. After all, even if you don't get anything in the end, I'm sure I won't return empty-handed with the goddess of fortune's favor. The leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance looked at him as if he were a moron and then snorted. The leader girl remained casual and peaceful. After all, she had already won the Tree of Laws. It should be others who felt anxious. The people inside the Star Lord's small worlds looked at each other in bewilderment, not expecting that pair of seniors to blackmail them. Was the journey to the divine residence going to end at its gate? That would be hilarious. However, nobody dared to say anything at the moment, that was a Star Lord business. Many rogue Star State cultivators were digging in the garden at the rear. The soil discarded by Star Lords was a treasure to rogue experts. The nourishment able to grow the Tree of Laws was extremely rare. Although 90% of the energy in the soil had been absorbed, the remaining 10% wasn't ordinary either and would be worth the trip. As time went by, more and more parts of the barrier were cracked. 20 minutes later, both of the Star Lords stopped and watched the other Star Lords casually. Their implication was obvious. If the others wanted to go in, they would have to accept their requirements, or all of them would be stuck there. The two experts weren't just opening the gate for free. That was how the world moved. When you do something good, other people might thank you on the surface but secretly mock your stupidity. Are you really going to do this? We're all dignified people. Why are you so greedy when it comes to such trivial treasures? Well said. If they're just trivial treasures, why don't you give them to me? Everybody was caught in an impasse. Half an hour later a deafening explosion was spread out from the depths of the divine residence. The rumbling thunder sounded like the roar of an ancient beast, it could also signify the appearance of an ultimate treasure. The noise came from the distance, and everybody outside of the barrier was able to hear it. The faces of all the Star Lords changed as they looked at the magnificent divine residence. However, they seemed to be too far from the residence, they could not see a thing. Damn it! Fine, we'll give you the secret treasures, but it's only going to be one each. You can split them up between yourselves. Indeed. Just one. Don't cross the line, or we'll just work together and kill you. We'll attack if you don't accept. This is making me so angry. All the Star Lords were angry, they felt as if someone were strangling them. The two Star Lords looked at each other and finally gave in, they accepted the new proposal. They originally demanded 2 secret treasures because they wanted to leave room for negotiation, they were also tempted by the noise deep inside the divine residence. In any case, they were capable when it came to secret barrier techniques. They might be needed again if there were other locks in the divine residence. Furthermore, they could get secret treasures that other people couldn't. Being stuck and haggling with those guys wasn't that convenient. Soon after, the Star Lords submitted their worst secret treasures. Some of them had redundant items, they wouldn't regret giving them away. Inside the small world, Suaping watched the 2 Star Lords accept the secret treasures and crack the barrier. His eyes glittered. He was familiar with the barrier, but he wouldn't say it out loud. Joanna had taught him the refined arrays from the primordial times. Their mechanisms were rather similar to that of the barrier. He felt capable of cracking it too, if he had more time. But he certainly wouldn't do that. Those who could crack arrays were bound to get more secret treasures from the divine residence. Everybody knew that. He preferred to keep a low profile. Hey! Suaping suddenly felt as if someone was gazing at him. He turned around, only to find it was the purple-robed young man who had competed with him earlier. The man was standing in the middle of the Star State group, but he was obviously different from the others, plus he was giving him a cold glare. Suaping raised his eyebrows and his middle finger. Bring it on! The young warrior snorted in fury and his eyelids twitched before he looked away. The nearby Father Time said to him telepathically, "Brother Heaven Destroyer, you should be careful. That man must have a powerful background, he may be backed by a force beyond the Star-Lord state." Several advanced Star State men from the Alliance of Stars were standing next to Suaping at the moment. O'Neill had been pushed aside, he could only smile bitterly as he watched this happen. It was true that real gold always glitters. Even those advanced warriors were extremely courteous to Suaping at the moment, which made it harder for him to get close. He then felt lucky for not having made an enemy of Suaping. Otherwise, his entire family would have been destroyed because of his grandson. A family that had ruled over a planet for 1,000 years had a huge population. Whoever could cause its downfall would definitely be a black sheep of the family. He probably just captured Garland because he wanted the others to inform me, so that I would leave him alone. O'Neill thought and heaved a sigh. That was the world of a big shot. They didn't care about retaliations, at all, because all the rest were ants to them. He probably would have been slapped and killed had he retaliated. However, the man was too lazy to slap him, so he simply warned him. "Don't bother. I don't care even if his father is in the ascendant state," Suaping said to Father Time. He had considered the situation when the young man was dominating the small world and crushing star state opponents. Also, he realized that the ascendant state big shot behind that fellow couldn't be one of the three guys exploring the divine residence. Such a big shot was definitely not there, or he would have simply plucked the tree of laws remotely. It would be unnecessary to ask a junior to compete for it. Was the fight to make a demonstration? To whom? There would be a better opportunity to shine in the Universe Geniuses contest. With that in mind, Suaping wasn't afraid of pissing that guy off. After all, as long as he returned to his store, that ascendant backer would be unable to do a thing. Besides, Suaping didn't think that such a powerhouse would fight for that. It would be embarrassing. Father Time was shocked by the response, becoming solemn afterwards. The way Suaping talked. Is there an ascendant state expert behind him too? It made sense. How could a genius such as Suaping not have an ascendant state teacher? Even if he was from one of the 5 best academies, his talent was such that he would be protected by the academy even after he graduated. The other ascendant state experts would have to talk with his backer first if they wanted to deal with him. At this moment, both of them heard an ambitious and refreshing voice, which belonged to their leader. "You're right. A real man shouldn't be afraid of anything, not even the ascendant state. I admire your courage." Suaping was stunned and surprised. "You can hear us?" "Of course. Nothing is a secret to me in my small world," replied the leader girl, chuckling. "Suaping. So, you even know the color of my underwear? That's so shameless." Suaping looked around to see all the people present and felt like his blood was freezing. The moment he thought that so many people were practically naked in the eyes of their leader. He had a weird feeling. How horrid. "Hey!" The leader girl frowned, as she found that Suaping's eyes looked weird. But she couldn't tell why they were weird. Right then, the barrier flashed and disappeared. "We made it, it's open," the Star-Lord who cracked the array said in relief. He then became vigilant and looked at everybody. Since the barrier had been destroyed, he could only flee if the other Star-Lords were keen on getting their treasures back. Although he was outnumbered, he was also a Star-Lord and could hardly be killed if he was determined to flee. That was one of the reasons why they had the guts to blackmail that many people. "What's that?" The other Star-Lords were clearly aware of that, too. None asked for their ticket fee back. Besides, their attention was drawn by the views beyond the broken barrier. The world inside the divine residence resembled the void. Lonely temples were floating like islands. They were mysterious and glamorous, with vague starry formations appearing now and then. The divine residence wasn't as beautiful and enjoyable as everybody had expected. Instead, it was eerily quiet, as if it were already a wasteland. "The divine residence isn't close to us at all. It must be the power of Allah." No, it may be the power of a deeper level, something we can't comprehend. Why am I feeling the scent of death? My ghoul is agitated. Something seems to be hiding here. There may be ancient traps in these remains. Everybody, be careful, someone reminded the group. All the Star Lords were suspicious and solemn. They didn't see any danger, but they somehow felt the chills, as if they were in the middle of a graveyard at night. There's another barrier. Inside the small world, Sua Ping keenly noticed the traces of an invisible array. At this moment, there was a change in the faces of the two Star Lords who had just cracked the barrier. One of them whispered, "There's another barrier." Hey! A few of the other Star Lords were stunned, their faces showing concern. The rest, however, didn't show any surprise, they also seemed to have noticed it. "Since you've already charged us for the service, why don't you crack that too?" suggested one of the Star Lords. The other Star Lords quickly nodded, all of them were unwilling to pay a second time. The two men didn't intend to charge either, mainly because they realized that the second barrier wasn't as complicated as the first one. "Let me do it," said the fatter of the pair and instantly broke the array. Astral runes appeared and fitted the ripples in the void like keys. The revolving streaks looked like a huge plate. The ancient illusion array was dissolved in only 15 minutes. As the array was dispelled, the world revealed its true appearance, as if a curtain had just been lifted. The noisy crowd became silent when they saw the real view. Everybody held their breath and widened their eyes in disbelief. The views were the same. The palaces were still there, and a bridge-like flight of stairs. The only difference was that bodies were scattered everywhere in the void. All those bodies had died in battle, or other miserable ways. Some were small humans whose blood was already dry, and some were beasts that were as massive as mountains, the blood covering their furs was already rigid. Only skeletons remained of other bodies, while others looked half-rotten. This silent place of the deities was full of bodies. Everybody felt like their blood was freezing. Is this the true view inside the divine residence? Some of the less courageous men in the star state trembled, weak in the knees. Sua Ping had a stern look. What happened in this ancient divine residence? Did all the owners of these corpses perish together with this place? Or do they belong to previous intruders? Far in the distance, the rogue star state cultivators who had dug the soil in the garden approached them and were just as astounded by what they saw. After several minutes of silence, a Star Lord stepped forward and said, "Since the barrier is already broken, I'll go first." Then, he jumped across the void into the area where bodies were floating. He pushed the still bodies away with his astral power, before he flew towards the temples. The bodies moved away easily, giving way to his prodding. They couldn't be more dead. The others snapped out of their stupor after seeing one of them take action. Although shocked and intimidated, their greedy nature made them move forward at a fast speed. The world behind the barrier was vast. They didn't have to stick together any longer, and could search for their own treasures. Boom! Suddenly, a thunder rumbled, and someone roared. Everybody looked. They saw that the Star Lord who had moved first had flown above a cliff. A lightning bolt appeared before him and struck. The Star Lord performed multiple attacks to offset the lightning, but he was still thrown back hundreds of meters. What's going on? Everybody was surprised by the uncanny lightning strike. Other than Sua Ping and the purple-robed young man, all of them were in the star state and could easily tell that the lightning contained the strange heavenly tribulation power. It wasn't normal lightning. Whoosh! Whoosh! More and more Star Lords pushed the bodies away and reached the cliff. Some Star Lords quickly noticed the anomaly and said, "There seems to be a strange law locking this space." No, to be more exact, this is the space of another world that we're not allowed to enter. How is it possible? When a person dies, his small world collapses, unless the master of this space is still alive. Maybe he sealed his small world in this place when he was still alive. Maybe. We're already in the small world that the master of the divine residence constructed. I heard that ascendant state small worlds exist forever. This should be an example. The Star Lords gathered at the cliff and whispered to each other. Why has nothing happened to the bodies? Someone noticed that a lot of bodies, including those of dragons, phoenixes, humans, and giant beasts, were floating above the cliff. All of them had been mutilated, some had broken wings, some had a hole on the chest, and some looked like specimens in iron water. Weird. Is it because they're dead? This law can distinguish the living and the dead. It seems that it's not just one law, but a complete path that contains many laws. Let me have a try. A Star Lord suddenly invoked a creature that emitted the horrifying air of the undead. It was hideous, made of rotten flesh and bones. The pet roared, and several skeletons rose from the ground. The skeletons had wings on their backs and sabers in their hands. All of them were strong, senior skeletons. It was also of note that the summoning didn't use the bodies on the ground, it was an advanced technique. Whoosh! The summoned skeletons instantly flew beyond the cliff. But the moment they did so, several lightning bolts struck them to pieces, their remains fell deep under the cliff. A cold wind was raging from the depths, as if some horrifying being was blowing at them. All of them were undead creatures, but they can't move forward. Why? Some Star Lords frowned, as their conjectures had just been disproved. The summoned skeletons were no different than the other non-breathing creatures. It was weird to find that they had also triggered the heavenly tribulation. Inside the small world, Suaping frowned and looked at the floating bodies with horrified expressions. Is this even a divine residence? I feel like it's no different from hell. So many bodies have been preserved for such a long time. Is it because of the barrier, or because they were too strong when they were still alive? Shenung's 3 punches and the others whispered, slightly intimidated by the bodies around them. I think that all those bodies died by suicide. Suaping observed the bodies and felt cold. At this moment, outside of the small world, the Star Lords tried many different methods. Some who mastered the laws of darkness attempted to cover themselves with the power of the undead, but they were still seen through and struck back. Some tried to weather through the heavenly tribulation. It worked at first, but when they moved dozens of meters forward, the lightning strikes became so powerful they had to go back. At this moment, some Star Lords noticed the stairs above the abyss. Hey! There's heavenly tribulation on the stairs too, but not as powerful. Some Star Lords started to climb the stars and were moving forward. The same heavenly tribulation was affecting the stairs, but it was less powerful and could be resisted. The rest decided to try the stairs upon seeing that. Boom! A Star Lord was trying to climb, but then a fierce lightning bolt struck him. It was as powerful as those near the cliff. The Star Lord's expression changed quickly as he resisted the strike. He had to retreat. The other Star Lords were puzzled, as the previous Star Lords didn't suffer such a fierce attack. Boom! A Star Lord that was next to the guy was also struck by lightning, but the attack had no power. Haha, I said I was the lucky one, but you didn't believe me. The Star Lord was none other than the leader of the Huang Alliance, who casually repelled the lightning strike and laughed at the man who was forced to retreat. Then, he strode on. The other Star Lords looked at each other in bewilderment. Was it really a matter of luck? The Star Lord who had been forced to step back moved forward again, only to encounter the same fierce lightning strike. The Star Lord couldn't help but roar in fury after having to step back again. What is going on? He could not believe it. He might be unlucky once, but why twice in a row? Was the heavenly tribulation biased these days? Nearby, the leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance remarked casually, "Let me tell you, it's all about handsomeness." He had walked 6 stairs before he was met with the first lightning strike, but it wasn't powerful, he easily handled it with his fan. The leader of the Overlords Alliance, who was a female overlord, laughed and said, "Haha, I think so too." Although she was tall and strong, she did have a charming face. Is that so? The leader of the Heavenly Fist Alliance was suspicious. He had been struck by a powerful lightning moments earlier. Is it really all about appearances? He instantly adjusted his muscles and changed his face became much more handsome. He got on the stairs again. Boom! Another fierce lightning struck and forced him to retreat. Damn it! The leader of the Heavenly Fist Alliance was exasperated. Am I being singled out? Isn't the heavenly tribulation supposed to be a lifeless thing? The people inside the small worlds were also surprised. The situation on the stairs was too weird. Some Star Lords walked 10 stairs before they encountered the first lightning strike, while others couldn't even take the first step no matter how many times they tried. Obviously, it wasn't a random situation. There seemed to be some sort of pattern, and some people were being targeted. Something's wrong. Why are they fine? Damn it! The Star Lords who were being discriminated against jumped in fury near the stairs. It would have been fine if everyone would have suffered equally. And yet, only some of them were treated unfairly. It's so infuriating. They were all anxious when others were striding forward, as the treasures further ahead would be taken first. The 2 Star Lords who had cracked the barriers were gloomy. They had also fallen prey to the heavenly tribulation. The further they went, the more powerful the lightning strikes were. They could only go back. Otherwise, they felt they would have been killed. It was even more powerful than the heavenly tribulation they endured to become Star Lords. They were completely unable to catch up with the others. What's the difference between us and them? Is it our background? That can't be true. How can the heavenly tribulation tell a person's background? Besides, their backgrounds aren't entirely the same. As far as I know, the leaders of the Huang Alliance and the Thousand Feathers Alliance are from different galaxies. That's odd. Have they eaten the same food? That's impossible. Wait, does the heavenly tribulation depend on your strength? The stronger you are, the more powerful the lightning strikes will be? Isn't it like what happened during our advancement? Hey? It does make sense. So to speak, all those who are forced to retreat are stronger. That's music to my ears. However, let's hope that the truth isn't the opposite. If the lightning strikes are more powerful for those who are weaker, then the Star Lords who couldn't do anything had to wait in front of the stairs. Very soon, the leaders of the Thousand Feathers Alliance, the Overlords Alliance and the other alliances were forced to step back by the escalating lightning strikes. Dozens of steps ahead, the leader girl was still stubbornly moving forward. The heavenly tribulation she had gone through was dreadful enough. It contained such great horror that everybody in her small world including Suaping was frightened. Suaping was not frightened by the lightning strikes, but of the possibility that the girl couldn't endure them. Besides, the corpses in that place gave him a creepy feeling. He felt like someone was watching him. Damn it! After moving dozens of steps forward, right when she finally reached the 38th step, the leader girl couldn't endure any longer and had to retreat. She looked at the divine residence ahead of her. At first it seemed to be as distant as if it were thousands of kilometers away, but the divine residence was really close when standing on the stairs, as if just 100 steps away. And yet, those 100 steps were exactly the most difficult. The 9th. I reached the 32 RD. The stairs are rather weird. It's not entirely true that your heavenly tribulation will be powerful if you are weak. Some people are quite strong, but they encountered a path-level heavenly tribulation too. Everybody frowned and thought hard. All the Star Lords had revealed their strength on the stairs, so they knew each other quite well. The guys who retreated within the first 10 steps are all weak. The leader of the Heavenly Fist Alliance is strong. His power of faith is perfectly integrated with his small world. He's definitely a strong Star Lord, yet he was also blocked within the first 10 steps. That didn't make sense. The leader girl slightly frowned in confusion. The ancient stairs were indeed perplexing. There has to be a pattern in the heavenly tribulations. They're not random. Indeed, no matter how many times I went there, the intensity of the lightning strike on each step was the same. I'm thinking. Since it has nothing to do with strength, is it related to age? Age? The Star Lords looked at each other in bewilderment. That was indeed a possibility. Those of you who made it past 30 steps, how old are you? One of the Star Lords asked. They had already been divided into several echelons. The first echelon included 6 people, who had gone beyond the 30-step mark. One of them even reached the 40th step. You'd better report your own information first, said the leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance in a casual manner. He was also in the first echelon. Although he was a guy, he didn't like being asked about his age. Humph, what's there to hide? Age is just a number for us. Nobody is old until they've lived 10,000 years, said a Star Lord and snorted. He was in the second echelon and had only managed to reach the 20th step, but he was very strong. He was observing the guys in the first echelon. According to his estimation, he was as strong as them. Moreover, after piecing together through all the discussions, it was obvious that the stairs were not judging them based on their strength, so he didn't mind, even if the leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance was in the first echelon. Someone stood out and tried to soothe the atmosphere. Everybody, this bridge is our only chance to enter the residence. I hope we can work together and figure out the pattern of the heavenly tribulations, so that we can all make it through and be able to look for treasures. After all, we're here to hunt treasures, not each other. Don't you agree? The others showed their contempt. They didn't accept the idea, but they didn't express disapproval either. None of the Star Lords were willing to listen to orders of another Star Lord, they would only listen to Ascendant State warriors. Indeed, everybody, let's all report our age, just to be fair, someone suggested and then added, I'm more than 9,000 years old. I don't remember the specific number. I think I'm in my 6,000s, said another Star Lord. If we're talking about physical age, I should be about 12,000 years of age. What do you mean by physical age? I've explored some mysterious realms where time flows at different speeds. 1,000 years in those worlds equate to 1 day in reality. While you've lived several years in the Federation, I have spent thousands of years over there. So, my physical age increased by several thousand years. That's true. Tisk, tisk. You're all rather old. I'm only 3,000 years old. I'm planning to prepare a big birthday celebration this year. I think I'm around 5,600 years old. It seems that you're all juniors. I've lived more than 100,000 years. Haha. Very soon, all of them reported their ages. The Star Lords were almost immortal and could reforge their bodies in their small worlds. They virtually wouldn't die, until they lost their faith. It was easy for them to live hundreds of thousands of years, long enough to witness the rise and fall of a civilization. Humph, is that a big deal? You're just a Star Lord like me. You're not in the Ascendant State yet. Exactly, you're still a Star Lord after living for 100,000 years. If I were you, I would have reached the Ascendant State a long time ago. What do you know? You think you can just reach the Ascendant State without permission from the heavens? There's a good chance you'll spend the rest of your life as a Star Lord. The oldest Star Lord said coldly, only 1 in 100 can reach the Ascendant State. I became a Star Lord before I was even 2,000 years old, but I'm still 1 at the moment. There's a good wait ahead of you. Humph. Another Star Lord endorsed him. That's true. I also reached the Star State at around 2,000 years old. I've lived 30,000 years, and I've made little progress. The gap between the Star Lord State and the Ascendant State isn't as simple as you think. It's 100 times more difficult than the leap from the Star State to the Star Lord State. You think the awe-inspiring Ascendant State experts grew up so easily? The faces of the other Star Lords changed slightly. Many of them became Star Lords when they were 2,000 years old or even older. Did it mean that they had to stay in that level for tens of thousands of years? It felt unimaginable. Hearing that, the leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance sneered and said, "What a bunch of old fogies! I'm 800 years old, and I've been a Star Lord for more than 100 years. What you said is just the norm, and geniuses are destined to break it." He was implying that the other Star Lords were just mediocre. The other Star Lords present were angered by his remarks, especially those who had lived more than 10,000 years. However, their expressions changed when they thought of his age. It took him 700 years to become a Star Lord? He's indeed a rarely seen genius. "I'm 629 years old," said the tall and brawny female overlord. She looked at the leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance with obvious contempt on her pretty face. "You think you're young? I'm even younger." She was rather proud of herself. After all, she was very strong for someone her age. The leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance changed his expression. "Only a bit over 600 years?" He became quite solemn. He had seen the female overlords attack several times, which indicated a significant amount of power of faith. It didn't seem that she had just cultivated for only a few hundred years. The power of faith had to be collected, and that required time. The longer it took, the more one could collect. Unless, she had a powerful believer who provided a great amount of power of faith for her. "Haha, you're truly weaklings." Nearby, the leader of the Huang Alliance laughed and said, "I'm only 580 years old. I must be the youngest Star Lord here. Haha, it seems that all the Star Lords I know are older than me. Is training really so hard? Don't you just grow stronger by eating and sleeping?" The others were slightly shocked. 580? The man wasn't even 600 years old yet? It had to be noted that most people of that age had yet to reach the fate state. Some geniuses had barely made it to the star state at such an age, and not many could achieve that. That guy was definitely extremely good at cultivation. The lips of the leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance twitched. He didn't expect that the idiot he had never liked was that young. Didn't it mean that the man was even more talented than him? How unfair! The face of the female overlord also changed. She frowned, and then snorted. She was somewhat angry after finding out that she was older by several decades. Even though several decades were just the blink of an eye in their entire cultivation life, she was slightly slower anyway. At this moment, the leader girl suddenly opened her mouth. "Are you all done?" She wore a strange expression, which was a mixture of excitement and pride. The contempt and condescension in her eyes, plus the curled lips on her face suggested that she couldn't wait any longer. "I didn't know you were all this lame. Back off, it's time for me to dazzle you." "Hey!" All the others looked at her. The leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance had a bad feeling when he saw the unusual excitement on the girl's face. He became even gloomier. "Why? Are you even younger than me?" The leader of the Huang Alliance looked at her in surprise. That was the first time he had encountered a younger Star Lord. There was no longer the teasing look in his eyes, and he was rather solemn. He seemed crazy and unreliable, but he was actually quite calm, and knew what the age meant. Maybe they would be Star Lords for tens of thousands of years, but to become a Star Lord at a younger age would usually mean that they had a greater talent. The journey would depend on the future opportunities. Some people were gifted, but they could die accidentally. Some people might be untalented, but they could later be enlightened by sages. Well, well. The leader girl smiled in disdain. She couldn't have looked more arrogant. She laid her hands on her eyebrows and spoke in a lowered and cold tone, "I'm 89 years old right now." Silence. Nothing but silence. Everybody looked at her as if she were crazy. 89 years old? 89. All the Star Lords were shocked. The people in the Star State traveling in their small worlds were also wide-eyed, jaws almost hitting the ground. The girl is only 89 years old? Fine, she was technically not a girl anymore, being 89 years old. However, considering a Star Lord's longevity, she was almost an unborn baby. The leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance had seen it coming, but he still blurted a response in shock when he heard her age. That's impossible. Even if she had started training back when she was still a fetus, she couldn't have become a Star Lord in less than 100 years. Besides, the girl had a significant amount of power of faith. She could have hardly found any believer in such a short amount of time. How could she have collected power of faith? Well, well. The leader girl was very satisfied after seeing their responses, flashing a scornful smile. Su Ping was at a loss for words when he saw how snobbish that girl, or maybe grandma, was. 89 years old? Are you sure? You're already ancient, and yet you're as juvenile as a kindergartner? But very soon, Su Ping understood. Her young age suggested that she was not only talented but also quite diligent. Nobody could succeed with just talent, leaving hard work out. That was the cruel reality. If she had been devoted to training, it was reasonable to see her act as a child in other aspects, since she hadn't truly grown up yet. 89 years old. I was still in the void state back then. Oh my god, she must be lying, right? I reached the fate state at 100 years old, and I was already a super genius. But, those in the star state could only sob silently, devastated. Comparison could really be hurtful. The other Star Lords looked at each other and fell silent. 89 years old. If you're not lying, then you're truly awesome. Although age didn't represent strength, many people felt awed by her unusual talent. What the leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance said was partly right. Geniuses were bound to break the norm. Maybe the girl wouldn't stay in the Star Lord realm for tens of thousands of years as they did. After a brief silence, everybody resumed the business and continued reporting their ages. Then, they found that the three echelons might have truly been decided by age. It wasn't true in every case, but it was definitely a tendency. All of the people in the first echelon were of a young age, such as the leader girl, the leader of the Thousand Feathers Alliance and the leader of the Huang Alliance, except the one who reached the 40th stair. He was already 2,000 years old. However, the age order didn't apply to the second echelon. Someone in the second echelon was 30,000 years old, while others were 70,000. In the third echelon, there were people who were only 7,000 years old. Age does not seem to be the only factor, but those who are younger are indeed ahead of the others. I think it may be something related to age. Wait, does this order depend on your talent? Everybody was surprised by that sudden insight. They had gone to many mysterious realms, some of which had been left by ancient experts who had set up tests to ensure that only the talented heirs would inherit their gifts. That was not a rare occurrence. After all, the concept of inheritance was in the genes of human beings, and all the other intelligent creatures. Reproduction was just one form of inheritance. It was a habit that had been etched deep inside their souls. Do the stairs test your aptitude? Are the legacies of the divine residents at the end of the stairs? Someone couldn't help but guess. The moment they thought that, everybody's eyes were glittering with madness. The legacies of the divine residents were right over there? They couldn't begin to believe it. There might not be any legacies. Maybe this is just a test for us to enter the gate. In any case, we can just see if it's true with our pets, someone proposed. Nobody else objected. Instantly, someone summoned a pet and sent it to the stairs to try that theory. That's just the reality. I think I've been scorned by the stairs. Be more confident and drop the I think. So to speak. They have the highest aptitude? In fact, all of them have become Star Lords before the 1,000 years of age. They're equal to us now, truly talented. Indeed. This one in particular is only 89 years old. Tisk, tisk. Even my great-great-granddaughter is older than her. Although the reason for the discriminating lightning strikes was discovered, nobody felt happy about it. Did those who were untalented had to be treated unfairly? Why wasn't strength the criterion, so that those who were weak would be eliminated? they would have a chance to fight. Some people weren't happy, but they couldn't say anything. After all, it was a fact that they weren't as talented. Damn it, I know the reason now, but how can I pass this place? There's no time for me to improve my aptitude. Is this the only way in? How did the 3 ascendant experts go in? We might be able to take a shortcut if we figure out how they did it. Don't even think about that. Their methods are beyond our imagination. They could have torn their way into deeper spaces to enter. We can't go into the spaces they can. What do we do now? Everybody looked at each other in bewilderment. The stairs were so realistic that they could only sulk, even if they had known the reason already. At this moment, a voice from one of the Alliance members was heard. Is aptitude the deciding factor? 2 Star Lords looked at each other. Then, the purple-robed young man who had previously crushed many Star State opponents walked out of their small world. He had been frustrated ever since he was defeated by Suaping, thus losing the Tree of Laws. He was devastated. However, he currently felt he had an opportunity. Aptitudes were what mattered. He admired very few people in that aspect, except the champions of the Universe Geniuses contests, and the distinguished Ascendant State experts. Some of the Ascendants had been born to be geniuses with top divine constitutions. They grew up rapidly and defeated every opponent in their way as legend went. He admired those people. However, the others were just mortals, not worth mentioning in his eyes. Mr. Singh, are you going there? One of the Star Lords was quite surprised to see him. The other Star Lord quickly persuaded him, Mr. Singh, the heavenly tribulations on the stairs should not be underestimated. You are indeed strong, but this is still an unnecessary risk. Let me have a try. You can pick me up if anything goes wrong, said the purple-robed young man. He wasn't blindly confident of his capabilities. After all, that ancient divine residence had a lot of weird things. The bodies in the void, for example, were extremely strange and wicked. The 2 Star Lords looked at each other, they had no choice but to accept the arrangement. The remaining Star Lords also noticed the purple-robed young man. He was only in the Fate state, but none of them dared to underestimate him. They were treating a Fate state warrior with the utmost solemnity. If he were another person, they would have felt proud of this for the rest of their lives. This kid might be able to achieve something. If aptitude is the only criterion, maybe he can climb 40 steps, or even further. Indeed. He's even more talented than us. I'm sure there's an ascendant expert behind him. Of course. No matter how talented you are, you cannot accomplish anything if you don't have enough resources. You'd still starve if you don't have food, even if you have an awesome constitution. The others looked at the purple-robed young man curiously, wondering how far he could go. The leader girl slightly raised her eyebrows at him. At that moment, the young lord reached the front of the stairs. Suddenly, he turned around and looked at the leader girl. Then, he gazed at the small world floating around her, or more exactly, at Suaping who was inside it. Humph! The young man sneered, deciding not to say anything. He placed a foot on the first step. Suaping raised his eyebrows. Why did you have to smile at me before climbing the stairs? Do you suffer from epilepsy? Suaping was observing. It was better to let the man be the lab rat. He intended to find out whether the lightning he would invoke was in the Star Lord state or the Fate state. If the lightning strikes on the stairs depended on each individual, maybe he could have a try too. After all, such a requirement was too harsh for most people, but it was also an opportunity for others. An opportunity must never be missed. The purple-robed young man had already set foot on the stairs at that moment. The first step. Everybody narrowed their eyes. However, nothing happened on the stairs. Not a single lightning bolt fell. The 2 Star Lords who were the purple-robed young man's chaperones were secretly relieved, but they still observed anxiously. Their young lord raised his eyebrows and continued his walk forward. He wasn't met with lightning on the second, nor the third step. All the way forward, no lightning strikes on the 7th, 8th, and the 25th step. Such a smooth journey had never happened before. Even a genius such as the leader girl had experienced her first lightning strike on the 23rd step. Humph! The leader girl was quite angry after seeing that. Noticing the change, the deputy quickly consoled her, "No need to be angry, miss. You were as talented as him when you were in the fate state. Aptitudes are tested based on your level. He will probably not be as talented as you are if he becomes a Star Lord like yourself. He'll probably won't be as talented a Star Lord as you are." Humph! The leader girl snorted, but finally looked better. It was then that the first lightning fell over the purple-robed young man. The lightning bolt grew above the stairs. There were no clouds, as if it would have been brewing in the void. It hit him the moment it appeared. The young man had seen it coming. He raised his eyebrows and punched, shattering the lightning bolt, which was much less powerful than the first one received by a Star Lord. "It seems that the lightning's intensity depends on your cultivation." Someone exclaimed in shock and jealousy, "Oh my God! If that's the case, he'll go through the complete flight of stairs, won't he? If the Divine Residence's legacies were right on the other side, that guy would claim them all." The other Star Lords also showed awful expressions. They felt the world was unfair. How could they compare to a man who was more talented than them, and who was about to have more treasures than they did? On the stairs, the purple-robed young man was finally relaxed after enduring the first lightning strike. He flashed an excited smile. As expected, the stairs had been tailor-made for him. Aptitude was the only criterion. "Mr. Deity, I do love you." The purple-robed young man was agile as he moved forward. Lightning constantly fell, and the purple-robed young man crushed them easily. They didn't become as powerful as those in the star state, not until after the 35th step. However, that wasn't a problem for the purple-robed young man, at all. Being able to execute men in the star state, he could easily make lightning strikes of his own. He sprinted forward and soon crossed 40 steps, breaking the current record so far. Then, he dashed forward again and went to the 50th step. He had already covered half of the stairs. His fast progress made the Star Lords hold their breath anxiously. They were even more uneasy to see that someone else was about to get the treasures. Boom! A chain appeared in the purple-robed young man's hand and shattered a lightning bolt that contained powerful laws. Then, he continued moving forward. He had to begin taking the lightning strikes seriously from that point onwards. After the previous rest, and since he had taken more divine fruits, he had almost recovered. Very soon, the purple-robed young man reached the 60th step. The lightning strikes became so powerful that he had to merge with his pet. Then, he reached the 70th step and the lightning was powerful enough to threaten those at the peak of the star state. Without a word, he activated his golden runes to block the incoming lightning. Then he kept on going. Right when the purple-robed young man continued his ascent, Sua Ping suddenly appeared next to the first step. After seeing how the purple-robed young man was faring, Sua Ping was also confident that he could also pass the stairs test. He talked to the leader girl and asked her to release him from her small world. The leader girl had already witnessed Sua Ping's extraordinary performance. Sua Ping suppressed the purple-robed young man with a star state cultivation. He was definitely a genius with his methods and power. Given his aptitude, he might be able to reach the end of the stairs. The leader girl waved her fist and cheered, "Keep it up. Suppress him for me." The others finally noticed that Sua Ping was also on the stairs. All of them were shocked. Without further ado, Sua Ping simply moved forward. Whoosh! Like a wind, he quickly crossed almost 30 steps. Behind him, the Star Lord's eyeballs had almost popped out. It was almost as if he were racing. What happened with the tribulation lightning? Were they asleep? Whoosh! Sua Ping rushed forward and soon climbed to the 40th step. No lightning attacks so far. Some even suspected that Suaping had walked too fast for the lightning strikes to react. But that couldn't be the case. How could the heavenly tribulations be that simple? On the stairs Suaping moved swiftly and confidently. He was quite surprised, since he hadn't been hit by lightning yet. It seemed that he was more talented than he thought. Unfortunately, the system could only rate the pets, otherwise he would have found out what aptitudes he had. If his aptitude was to be judged, he had to compare himself with other humans. It was a shame that he couldn't appraise himself. In the blink of an eye Suaping had reached the middle of the stairs. By then, the purple-robed young man had already reached the 80th step. He heard the exclamations behind him and turned his head. Immediately, he saw Suaping. He felt slightly gloomy after seeing Suaping there, but not too shocked. After all, the man had demonstrated enough strength in the previous battle. Considering the man's aptitude, he might even be able to reach the 70-step mark. Humph! The purple-robed young man snorted and resisted the lightning strikes with the golden runes, which would save him time. Once the young lord suddenly decided to accelerate, Suaping raised his eyebrows and instantly shot himself forward. 60, 7th, 80. In the blink of an eye, Suaping had caught up with the purple-robed young man. The Star Lords waiting near the stairs were astounded, his eyes were as wide as they could go, and their jaws almost hit the ground. Are the heavenly tribulations broken? Suaping didn't trigger any of them during the first 80 steps? There wasn't even one lightning attack? Whoosh! The purple-robed young man felt a wind and then saw Suaping easily surpassing him. His cold and determined face instantly lost its cool. Hurry up! Suaping turned around and chuckled. Then, he dashed quickly and reached the 90th step. The divine residence was right in front of him. Suaping thought of the legacies too, so he didn't waste any time. Soon after, he finished the 100 steps. Once he set foot on the 100th step, a lightning bolt was gathered in the void, but it later dispersed, right after it took shape. That was because Suaping had already jumped off after the last step. The purple-robed young man, who was on the 85th step, was stunned. The lightning bolts were still striking him, and multiple golden runes were blocking them. The dispersing lightning illuminated his head, but his heart was colder than ever. He had walked for such a long time, but still, Suaping had surpassed him that easily. Damn it, you're only in the star state. You can't even deal with a few Star Lords. Why are you more talented than me? Why? The purple-robed young man then lost his cool. He felt that he would be able to fight against Star Lords once he reached the star state. Even if he was unable to win, he wouldn't be easy to deal with, either. Still, Suaping, a man who hid in the small world of a Star Lord, had a better aptitude than him. A Star Lord set foot on the steps suspiciously. Did the heavenly tribulations lose effect? But then lightning fell after only a few steps. He crushed it and then retreated, at a loss for words. The heavenly tribulations didn't lose effect. That was awfully weird. Was Suaping carrying any ultimate treasures that could prevent lightning strikes? They had never heard of such treasures. Was he simply too talented? He only encountered the gathering, and dispersion, of lightning when he took the last step. As a result, nobody saw how powerful the lightning strike was. If he counted on nothing but his aptitude, he had surely hidden his strength in the previous battle. Did he? So to speak, he could have easily defeated that kid but chose to play with him. I don't know what it means to simply walk to the end of the stairs, but he should be able to challenge opponents beyond his level. He has to be as strong as us. Damn it, this is a ruthless man who likes pretending to be weak. The Star Lords looked at each other in bewilderment. The man was only in the star state, but was as strong as a Star Lord? If the stairs hadn't indirectly shown his aptitude, nobody could have figured out that he had never tried his best in the earlier battle. That guy, the leader girl, was quite stunned, too. Although she was quite proud, she knew she couldn't cross the ancient stairs as easily as Suaping did. The man's aptitudes were unbelievable. Seriously? Brother Heaven Destroyer didn't trigger any lightning. He triggered one, but he left before it took shape. Brother Heaven Destroyer is unbelievable. No wonder he chose such a name. He's truly a Heaven Destroyer. Tisk, tisk. Our leader is probably the only person who's more talented than Brother Heaven Destroyer. He's so awesome. All the members of the Alliance of Stars were whispering, overwhelmed with shock. There are so many Star Lords here, yet someone in the Star State is taking advantage of us. It's hard to say. The 3 Ascendant State experts couldn't have missed the legacies here. Cut the crap. The problem is, how are we going to get there? All the Star Lords felt a headache. Up on the stairs a grim purple-robed young man was trembling with fury. He could accept the failure of the competition for the Tree of Laws, since he didn't want to expose his biggest trump card for something that wasn't worthy enough. However, he had failed again while his aptitude was being tested on the stairs. There were no excuses this time. He had been completely crushed. On the other end of the stairs, Suaping looked at the divine residence, which seemed so distant that it seemed as if it were thousands of kilometers away a moment earlier, but tangible and close at hand at that moment. The construction was magnificent. Suaping concentrated divine power on his eyes and saw traps in many places. They were ancient traps built with arrays. He felt able to crack some of them, but the others were too perplexing. Is this the divine residence? There are no legacies here? Suaping looked around and didn't see any of the sort. If there were, shouldn't there be some sort of guidance for him since he had passed the stair test? He waited for a moment, but nothing happened. He couldn't help but feel regretful. But Suaping wasn't too sad. After all, the 3 Ascendants had entered that divine residence earlier, and might have already claimed the legacies. It would be unrealistic to take advantage of experts of that caliber, finding treasures they missed. Suaping shook his head. It was fine if no legacies were available, any trip would be worth it as long as he could find anything valuable. It would be even more profitable if he found something more precious than the Tree of Laws. Suaping looked at the other end of the stairs, only to find that the mist blocked his senses. It seemed to contain some sort of special energy. He couldn't see the leader girl or the other Star Lords. He shook his head, feeling lucky that the other treasure hunters had been unable to enter. He withdrew his gaze and walked into the square up ahead. The place was extremely vast and clean, surrounded by bodies floating all around like a hellish scene, but the square was in fact clean, with unworldly clouds drifting everywhere. After he walked only several steps, a cold and angry roar came from behind him. Hey! Suaping looked back, only to see the purple-robed young man glaring at him by the stairs. The poor sod looked truly wretched. His luxurious purple robe, which seemed to be a secret treasure, was already ragged. His neat hair also became fluffy, just like a rock star. His pants had been torn apart too, revealing his blackened thighs and even part of his butt. Hey! What can I do for you? Suaping appeared to be absolutely harmless. The young man's lips twitched. What can you do? You surpassed me. Remember my name. I am Seeing He, said the haughty fellow with a gloomy expression, adding word for word, one day, I will challenge you again and beat you. Okay, Suaping replied, uninterested. He thought it was about something else. You want to beat me? Not going to happen. Also, why would I give you a chance to challenge me? Is there any bonus for beating you again? Okay. The purple-robed young man almost vomited blood when he heard Suaping's reply. Is that how a man was supposed to reply to a challenge? Common sense dictates that geniuses should cherish each other. He should have said, I'll wait for you to challenge me. If he were more arrogant, he could have added, you'll fail again when you meet next time. Although the young man would have been angered by that, he would have replied coldly, things change. Just you wait. Still, All I got was an okay? What's the meaning of that? The greatest insult was indifference. You will regret your arrogant attitude. Seeing he gnashed his teeth, Su Ping felt a bit confused. Why am I arrogant? Who's being arrogant here? You, a Fate State warrior, are challenging Void State guy like me, yet you're saying I'm arrogant? I'll be on my way if that is all. Su Ping would rather spend the time on treasure hunting than chattering senselessly. Su Ping wouldn't have even minded finishing the guy off right then and there, so that he wouldn't cause any trouble in the future were it not for his big stash of life-saving trump cards. It remained unknown if he could become a troublemaker. Seeing he gloomily watched as Su Ping turned around and walked away. He clenched his fists so hard they almost broke. He had never been completely ignored before, that was usually how he treated the proud talents he defeated. And yet, he was the one who became the object of ridicule that day. How humiliating! Seeing he gazed at Su Ping's back and swore, just wait for it. When I reach the star state, I will step on your head, then have you kneel and beg for mercy. He didn't waste any time, either, he turned around and left. He suddenly thought of something after taking a few steps. The stairs felt like a test. Then, where's the reward for that test? Did Su Ping already claim it? That couldn't be the case. Although surpassed, he used a lot of trump cards and quickly caught up to Su Ping, he didn't see the latter picking up any sort of legacy. It seems that the stair test was not set to choose an heir, but just to screen out unqualified visitors. That makes sense. If there were any legacies available, the three ascendants surely claimed them already. Seeing he was slightly relieved. If Su Ping would have obtained a legacy, it would probably be impossible for him to beat him someday, and he would have bragged about it. The more proud someone was, the less they would boast. Only those who were incapable of achieving their goals could enjoy bragging about themselves. Once he thought that, seeing he chose not to stay and moved to the opposite side of Su Ping's direction. Hey! Su Ping walked for a moment and suddenly shivered. A mist appeared before his eyes, it soon disappeared, revealing that he was in the middle of a peach orchard. Flower fragrances were intense in that spot. Su Ping was surprised by the relocation. Was that a hidden teleportation array? Or is it an illusion array? He observed the peach orchard and found it to be very real. He cautiously moved forward, soon finding a tombstone. The place became creepy the moment he laid eyes on it. Su Ping focused his eyes on the tombstone. He couldn't read all the ancient divine characters inscribed, but he recognized one of them, which seemed to be heaven. The peace orchard suddenly faded when he gazed at the tombstone. The pink peach blossoms lost their color and became gray, an intense air of death arose from the bottom of the trees and turned into vague ghosts. The pink blossoms instantly fell and withered on the ground. Once the flowers fell, Su Ping immediately saw a lot of tombs in the peach orchard, besides the trees that looked like dry bodies. The place was a graveyard. Ghosts? Once he looked at the shape of a person that had just been consolidated, Su Ping frowned and summoned the little skeleton. That place was a divine residence anyway. He wouldn't dare to be careless, for he had but one life. The little skeleton emitted a powerful aura like the king of the dead the moment it appeared. Crimson light surfaced in its eyes as it coldly looked down at the ghosts. Still, the ghosts didn't seem to be fazed by this, and continued to surround them. Su Ping circulated his astral power, ready for battle. But exactly at this moment, a feeble voice came from far away. What year is it? The voice was uttered telepathically into Su Ping's head. He was able to understand the meaning it meant to convey. He was stunned for a moment, but then looked at a ghost who looked like a hunched old man. The voice originated from him. What made Su Ping become solemn was that the old man was standing there like an indestructible mountain that could block anything. This is year 5694, 7th Eon of the federal calendar, said Su Ping. He had obtained the information via the Lord badge back on Rhea. It was also the universal way of counting years for human beings. Federal calendar. What's that? Is the Twilight Deity King still alive? Asked the old man via telepathy again. Suaping was confused. Twilight Deity King? Is he the master of this place? That is correct. Well, I don't think so. This divine residence was already abandoned long ago. I heard that it surfaced from deep space because some barriers loosened. This place has nothing but ruins, said Suaping truthfully. Since the ghosts were willing to communicate, he preferred to avoid wasting his astral power to fight them. Abandoned. The ghosts around him seemed to tremble in shock after his response. Aura of death rippled on the old man, as if feeling greatly disturbed. It wasn't until a moment later that he finally calmed down and said, "So, you're an intruder that's here for treasures." Intruder? Suaping found the word aggressive and had a bad feeling about it. He quickly said, "I'm not an intruder, and I didn't come here for any malicious purposes. Allow me to apologize if I disrupted your rest. I see refined divine power in you, and you're also a human. Don't worry, we won't give you a hard time," said the old man. His voice carried the tone of death, but he sounded gentle and caring. Human beings should be united now that we're on the decline. We mustn't fight amongst ourselves. Now that you've come here, it is your fate to inherit whatever legacies the Twilight Deity King left behind. It will be great if another Deity King emerges and leads the rise of humankind." Suaping was a lot more relaxed to find that he wasn't malicious. He asked curiously, "Human beings are declining? Right now, we're the strongest species in the universe, we've colonized countless planets and turned beasts, ghosts, and aliens into pets. We're not as weak as we used to be. The strongest species in the universe." Not just the old man, the other ghosts were obviously stirred, too. They didn't know what universe meant, but they understood that it was the greatest world through their telepathic communication. The strongest species was easier to understand. Did human beings already become the strongest species? Are you serious? The old man rippled and spoke in a trembling voice. Suaping was stunned. Yes. That was what he had learned from the Lord Batch. Humankind was the dominating race of the whole universe at the moment. I didn't know that the day would really come. Finally, the long-awaited age of prosperity has arrived. Our sacrifice was not in vain. The Twilight Deity King is gone. He must have blocked the heavenly pit by sacrificing his life in the end. He exchanged himself for this age of prosperity. Haha, all the ghosts trembled violently at that moment. Some were letting out creepy noises that sounded both like sobs and laughter, but what they said was quite touching. Some were also laughing madly as if they would have lost their minds. Human beings are no longer as insignificant as ants. We don't have to look up to other species anymore. Ha ha ha, the old man laughed and then wiped his tears, although he didn't have any, being a spectre. He was simply doing it unconsciously. Suaping was shocked by their reactions. He could deeply feel the excited atmosphere amongst them. Learning about the age of prosperity, is this shocking? After regaining control of himself, the old man thanked Suaping. "Thank you. Thank you for bringing such good news to us." The other ghosts also offered their thanks. Suaping was overwhelmed. He had expected a fierce battle, not a joyful celebration. "I didn't expect that I could get to see the age of prosperity in the future. We can die without regrets. Yes, no more regrets. Our lives were worth it." All the ghosts declared in excitement. "This is the divine peach orchard where the Twilight Deity King buried us. Unfortunately, all the peach trees withered over the years while nurturing our souls. We'll soon be gone and enter the other world," said the old man to Suaping. Suaping then realized what had happened to the dry and blackened trees. "Senior, do you know how I can leave this place?" asked Suaping courteously. "That's easy." The old man raised his hand and waved. Then, a crack appeared, showing the divine residence outside. He looked at the magnificent divine residence with affection in his eyes. "Given our ghostly nature, we dare not taint the deity king's place of rest. You can get out through this passage. Suaping then relaxed and quickly thanked him. Now that you're here, the Twilight Deity King must be truly gone, but his divine residence still stands. I know where his treasury is. You can go there and see if there are any treasures that haven't been worn out by time yet. You would be doing those marvelous items a favor if you can make them glow again. The old man heaved a sigh. Thank you for your enlightenment, Senior. Suaping quickly cupped his hands and thanked him. All the ghosts were warriors who had died fighting in the divine residence. Their words implied that they were his predecessors, who had made enormous contributions to humankind. He could only feel respected for them. No need to thank us. After all, we'll soon be gone. The Twilight Deity King's lineage shouldn't be cut off. I simply hope that you can defend and protect humankind if you acquire the legacies. You mention that humans are already the strongest species, but there are still certain things you need to be vigilant of, said the old man thoughtfully. Suaping was puzzled. What things should we be vigilant of? Things we must not talk about. If you smoothly obtain the legacies and reach the Twilight Deity King's height, you would naturally know, said the old man in a low voice, as if he were scared. The other ghosts were also sobered up by the comment, shivering at the thought, as if they would have been reminded of something horrifying. Suaping thought of the golden crows. Even though they were strong, they were still living in seclusion to avoid catastrophes. What was it that made the golden crows so afraid? Is it the cycle of the heavens' will? Some sort of supreme being is going to rain disasters upon us. Suaping ventured, feeling like he was touching the deepest secrets of the universe. The old man was surprised that Suaping knew that. He glanced at Suaping and shook his head. Not the heavens' will, but something more ancient and dreadful. He suddenly shivered as he talked, as if suppressed by some sort of power. He quickly stopped talking. The elder took a deep breath and said to Suaping, "My friend, I'll give the treasury of the divine residence to you. As for the Twilight Deity King's legacies, we don't know if there are any, or where he left them. You have to find out by yourself." Suaping didn't probe further, seeing how weary the old man was. He simply nodded with a heavy heart. Got it. Soon after, a map popped up in Suaping's head. It was the map of the divine residence. I've given you the map of the entire divine residence. The treasury is over here, pointed the old man. There was a place marked with golden light on the map. That was the actual treasury the old man mentioned. Suaping instantly became excited. It was a map of the ancient divine residence, which could help him avoid many unnecessary dangers. He had not dreamed about finding the legacies, but he could find a lot of other treasures through the map. That would be rewarding enough. Thank you, Senior, said Suaping quickly. Go. The old man gradually faded away. The other ghosts also turned into fumes of death, to then return to the soil and the tombs. The previously withered peach trees were instantly enlivened, becoming pink again. Suaping took a deep breath and walked to the exit that the old man had opened for him. Suaping then returned to the square. He carefully read the map in his head, only to find that it was slightly different from what he saw. The depicted channels to enter the divine residence included not just the Lotus Lake and the Garden of Laws, but also a floating mountain and a bamboo garden. However, he didn't see the latter on his way in. There was no telling whether they had been destroyed, or if they had been modified after the old man's death. In addition, there wasn't an abyss below the stairs from where he came. It used to be a sacred place where cranes and marvelous beasts lived. And yet, that place was brimming with bodies at the moment. The square he was in had kept its original appearance. The palaces ahead were also the same, except that there were some hidden traps and arrays in the square that weren't marked on the map. Some of them were even fatal. He had also been teleported to the graveyard a moment earlier by a trap that was so inconspicuous that he didn't notice. Those traps must have been set up after the deaths of those ghosts. Suaping took a deep breath. He had a map, but he still had to circumvent the traps on his way carefully. That's a prison of deadly beasts. I can't go there. The pill temple is over there. Ultimate divine pills are kept in it. I should check it out. The treasury is at the rear of the divine residence. I'm sure that all the ascendant state experts are there at the moment. There's no need to go there just yet. Suoping found the direction he should take on the map and then took action. He was aiming at an enormous palace. He went there while carefully avoiding the traps on the way. He didn't try to crack the traps. After all, cracking took too long. He wouldn't do so, unless there was no way to avoid them. Fortunately, while the traps were old, they weren't very sophisticated and Suoping could even destroy them with brute strength. Such traps had obviously not been implemented by that deity king, or Suoping couldn't have noticed them as easily. Boom! Suoping accidentally stepped into a hidden trap, and a glowing, golden-armored divine guard charged at him with a sword. Suoping changed his expression and hurriedly fought it after merging with the little skeleton and the inferno dragon. Suoping finally crushed the guard after a battle which lasted several minutes. The latter dispersed into a puff of mist. He then returned to the square. Suoping was breathing heavily. The golden-armored guard was already at the advanced phase of the star state. Taking into account its divine techniques and solid defenses, it was much stronger than the advanced star state warriors of the Federation. Whoosh! Suoping pressed on. Several hours later Suoping finally reached the edge of the square after some fighting and fumbling. The divine residence at the end of the square looked as magnificent as a mountain, and as distant as if it were 1,000,000 kilometers away. Once he finally reached it, he found it so tall that he couldn't even see its eave. There were several characters on the board above the gate, but Suoping didn't recognize any of them. He was illiterate when it came to the language of the deities. There's indeed a barrier here. Suoping saw the golden light of a barrier outside of the divine residence. It was also quite a sophisticated one. At this moment, Suoping felt that he was missing Joanna. It would have been easy to crack the barrier if she were by his side. Unfortunately, he couldn't take the employees out, at least not at the current level of his store. Suoping heaved a sigh. What made him feel better was that he could more or less understand the barrier, thanks to what Joanna had taught him. The gods were ahead of all the other species in every aspect, having established a super country that was way ahead of others in technology, finance, infrastructure, and all remaining aspects. Gods were as good as the ancient deities in terms of barriers and arrays. Once you got to the bottom of it, deities were actually evolved human beings, whereas gods were independent and were unrelated to humanity. Or rather, human beings had been created by the gods. Later on, the Heaven Masters, the ancient deities and other strong beings emerged from humankind, and it was no longer an inferior species. Nevertheless, from what he learned from Joanna, the gods were still condescending, they despised human beings and all the other races. Suoping set foot on the first step in front of the divine residence. The moment he stood there, Suoping detected a gale passing through his body like a blade. Fortunately, his body was hard enough to endure it. If any other battle pet warriors were there, they would have been wounded even if they were in the advanced phase of the star state. Suoping calmed himself down and quickly cracked the barrier. He didn't have to fully crack the restriction, all he needed to do was to lift part of it so that he could crawl in. It's not that he couldn't crack it completely. Time flew, there was no telling how long it had been, but Suoping finally found a weakness and was able to reach the second step. The trap was instantly triggered. Suoping felt like he was being scorched, the board above his head glowed even more brilliantly, as if an intelligent god was looking down at him. The pain in his body and the intimidating power above his head were both enough to make anyone retreat. That was just a weak part of the barrier, the other parts were even more powerful, and even Star Lords would have to step aside. Suoping calmly continued cracking the rest of the barrier. His special resistance to flames was helpful, a heat that was enough to set Star State warriors ablaze only made him feel slightly hot, and he soon regained control of himself from being subject to the intimidating power above his head. After all, he had seen too many giants such as the chief elder of the Golden Crows. Days, or maybe months, passed while he remained in a trance. Since he was fully devoted to cracking the barrier, Suaping was unable to sense the passage of time. There was no sun inside the divine residence and the hazy light always remained the same. Suaping considered quitting halfway, both because cracking the barrier was too hard and because it was taking too long. He could have spent that time searching for treasures in other places, with the chance of finding something good. But he eventually dropped the idea, as he preferred to finish what he started. Phew! Suaping took a deep breath and defeated the 3 golden-armored divine guards that challenged him. He finally smiled when he saw the mist gone, finding himself outside of the temple. He managed to cross the barrier, the gate of the palace was right before his eyes. Suaping exerted strength on both hands and pushed the gate. He felt like he was pushing a mountain. An echoing creak was heard, after tens of millions of years of silence. Perhaps that gate had been opened frequently ages before, but it hadn't been opened for a long time until that day. Dust fell from the gap. Suaping quickly entered the palace after slightly opening the gate. He had already scanned the palace and didn't detect any traps. The palace was extremely spacious, it looked like a world of treasures. There were tall shelves with frames nearby, with hundreds of bubbles floating inside those frames. Every bubble was about half a meter in diameter, and every frame could contain 1,000 of them. It was not hard to imagine how big the palace was. Some of the bubbles contained furnaces, some had bottles, and some contained divine pills. Suaping instantly became excited. He had stepped into a treasury. There were so many items. Such pills were also available in the Federation. They were crafted by other civilizations and left in ancient mysterious realms, the Federation had copied some of them. Pills from mysterious realms boosted the development of medical technology in the Federation. A lot of medications designed for battle pet warriors had been created. Whoosh! Suaping flew to one of the shelves, on which plenty of bubbles were floating. He focused his attention on a bubble, and information instantly popped up in his head, showing the name of the pill. However, it was just a name without any description. What should I do? I can't eat it directly. This isn't a cultivation site where I can be resurrected and run tests with my own body. Suaping was in a dilemma. He didn't have enough storage to take all the pills away. If he were a Star Lord, he would be able to absorb all of them into his small world. Suaping put on a bitter smile, wishing he were a Star Lord. Little skeleton, you're good at regeneration. Why don't you have a taste? Suaping looked at the little skeleton by his side. The little skeleton raised its head and looked at Suaping. Soon, it realized it didn't have a choice. It was already used to it, too. Suaping had always preferred it while testing and exploring cultivation sites. The Inferno Dragon and the Dark Dragon Hound were both present, Suaping had summoned them in case he was caught in danger. Both of them looked at the little skeleton sympathetically, the Dark Dragon Hound glanced at it and then licked its paws. Please don't notice me. Suaping glanced at it. While the Dark Dragon Hound was good at self-protection, it didn't have a life-saving bloodline ability as the little skeleton did. Otherwise, he would have given the opportunity to the dog. He snatched a green bottle inside the bubble and opened it by plucking the cork as if it were champagne. However, a smell rose from the bottle. It was so nastily that Suaping had to hold his breath. What's going on here? Have the pills expired? Suaping couldn't help but think. Could divine pills expire? Well, probably not. Even Google knew the answer to that one. Deities weren't immortal. After all, not all deities could reach the ascendant state or higher. Many gods in the demigod burial had high start points, but they also had to train one step at a time. Most of them couldn't even become major gods. If deities weren't immortal, why wouldn't their pills expire? Suaping was almost weeping after thinking it through. He had finally cracked the barrier and snuck in. Would he have to embrace the cruel reality that the divine pills had expired due to a long time storage? Suaping suddenly turned around. The little skeleton and the dark dragon hound quickly stood on his sides, protecting him and releasing a daunting aura. A slim person suddenly drifted toward him and floated several meters from the ground. She turned out to be a girl in a green dress. Although dressed in an ancient style, she was remarkably beautiful. A keen mind could be seen through her eyes. She looked down at Suaping and asked curiously, "Are human beings still alive after so many years? How did you come through the barrier outside?" Suaping was equally stunned, not expecting to see someone else in the palace. "Senior, I mean no offense," Suaping quickly cupped his hands and said. He was unable to tell how strong the girl was, but his experience made him feel her cultivation was undoubtedly beyond the star state. It was easy to infer that she was virtually immortal, still being alive after so many years in desolation. Humph! There was a recent disturbance and the divine residence shook, now its power is fading. You must be an intruder who seized the opportunity to break in, aren't you? Snapped the girl with arms akimbo. Today is not your lucky day. Tell me what's going on outside. I'll refine you into a pill if you lie. A giant bubble that had a furnace in it flew toward them as she talked. Suaping started to feel dizzy. He might not be able to resist if the girl really attacked him. "Senior, I'm the Twilight Deity King's heir." Suaping hurriedly replied. "Heir?" The girl was dazed. She observed Suaping and remarked grimly, "Are you trying to fool me? You don't carry the aura of a deity, at all. How can you be the deity king's heir?" "It's absolutely true." Suaping felt relieved since she had yet to attack him. He knew that he had managed to win some of her trust by mentioning the Twilight Deity King. He immediately made up a story, as he always did. "The Federation rules nowadays. My ancestor sacrificed himself to resist the heavenly pit and finally ensured peace for humankind. The ancient family records were lost, my generation no longer had information about him. I only found this place and its map through the incomplete books my family still has." Suaping rambled with tears. He gave the map that the old man in the peach orchard had offered to the girl while he spoke. That was great evidence to back his claim. The girl was stunned for a moment after seeing Suaping's map, then became less suspicious. After all, she remembered the battle Suaping described. While there were records of the events inside the divine residence too, Suaping was too weak to retrieve them. "It seems that the deity king won the battle," mumbled the girl. Tears filled her eyes as she talked, apparently reminiscing about the shocking and devastating battle. Only those who had experienced it knew how challenging and influential it had been. Only a fearless warrior would have had the courage to sacrifice himself for victory. "There's indeed an ancient aura inside your body. Never mind, regardless of whether or not you're the deity king's heir, the deity king asked me to help human beings train a new deity king to pass on his mission." The girl lowered her head and stared at Suaping. Her girly eyes suddenly seemed old and weary, but that feeling was soon gone. She calmed down and said, "Tell me what's going on outside. The divine residence has been trembling recently. I recently detected 3 golden deities passing by. Are they intruders who intend to claim the deity king's legacies?" 3 golden deities. Suaping was quite shocked by her choice of words. Obviously, she was referring to the Ascendant State experts who had previously entered the divine residence earlier. She called them golden deities. Golden deity and deity king. Suaping didn't know which was stronger, but there was no way that the master of that divine residence was only a star lord, right? Besides, what was a deity king? He had surely been a king who commanded all the other deities. Did this residence belong to a supreme celestial? Was the Twilight Deity King an ultimate expert who had reached the immortal celestial state beyond the ascendant state? Suaping was quite shocked, not expecting that to be the residence of a celestial state expert. The entire Sylvie galaxy would have been shocked if the news were to spread. Not only those in the ascendant state, even celestial state cultivators in other galaxies would be attracted. Maybe the ascendants themselves would not even qualify to compete for the treasures. So, the three ascendant experts were only taking advantage of the early access to the place. You're right. They are intruders. Suo Ping instantly came back to his senses and decided to sell out the three ascendant state experts who had cracked the residence's barrier. Just as I expected. The girl didn't seem angry. She simply nodded and asked, "How are human beings doing these days? Are the three golden deities the strongest human beings?" Suo Ping instantly shook his head. "No, humankind is the strongest of all species now. There are supreme deity kings like my ancestor." He repeated the information he had told to the old man back in the peach orchard. The girl was in a trance for a long time. She then finally took a breath of relief with sadness and comfort in her eyes. So, the deity king made the right decision. This is the world of prosperity that he looked forward to. After thinking for a moment, she said to Suo Ping, "Since you're the deity king's heir, you may get the things in this room. Just tell me what pills you want. I'll pick them for you." Suo Ping's eyes glittered, not expecting to win her trust so easily. However, he also knew that she had deliberately gone easy on him. The air of the golden crows inside his body had also played a part in making him seem more trustworthy. Suo Ping wasn't in a rush to eat the pills. Instead, he asked prudently, "You must have watched over this place for years. May I know who you are?" "Me? I'm just a pill that the deity king refined," said the girl with a casual smile. Suo Ping was stunned. This girl is actually a pill? Is she edible? "I can give you a better chance to turn into a king when you become a golden deity," the girl chuckled and said, "but you're too weak right now. Although there are plenty of pills that suit people of your level, most have rotten over the years despite the use of good preservation methods. However, some of the high-quality ones are still good. I'll fetch them for you." The girl turned around and flew away. Suo Ping, however, was in a trance. He was shocked by what the girl said. She could increase his chances of becoming a king? In other words, it would be the level up from ascendant to the celestial state. It was definitely an ultimate treasure for ascendant state experts. All of them would go crazy over it. Several minutes later, the girl returned with a long series of bubbles behind her. Suo Ping was dumbfounded to see the number of bubbles that almost stretched to infinity. He didn't expect for them to be that many. It seemed that some meant different things to her and to him. How many divine pills were there inside the palace? This is a foundation polishing pill that can cleanse your body and improve the quality of your bones. This is a pill that can strengthen you. This is a pill that can purify your energy. This is... The bubbles cracked as the girl presented the goods. The pills inside flew towards Suo Ping. Suo Ping breathed heavily and asked, "Can I eat them just like that?" "Of course. You're too weak right now. Besides, the pills will rot in several thousand years anyway," said the girl. So, the pills were about to expire? Suo Ping didn't really mind. He had eaten food with only a month left, right at the beginning of the month. Besides, the expiration date was still thousands of years away. What was there to be afraid of? Bo! 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 Suo Ping opened the vials and stuffed the pills in his mouth, chewing and swallowing them. Gulp! Gulp! The pills were round, they emitted the fragrance of various herbs. Some had weird smells, but Suo Ping still ate them after confirming that they had yet to expire. The girl was a divine pill herself. She was a specialist in that aspect and could be trusted. After emptying several vials, Suo Ping soon felt changes inside his body. A wave of heat was rising like a volcanic eruption, and all his muscles were constricting. "Don't eat so quickly. You might die," said the girl, seeing how desperate Suo Ping was. Suo Ping had no time to talk. He closed his eyes and felt that his bones were burning and his muscles were spasming. A stream of holy energy was instilled into the vortices in his cells, creating an excited reaction which made revolve more intensely. Those revolutions refined the astral power inside the vortices, it became more profound, but not any purer. Suiping's astral power had been tempered by the heavenly tribulations again and again. It was so pure that the purifying pills didn't really work on him. However, the energy inside the divine pills had been transformed into astral power and made Suiping's storage even more magnificent. Phew! Suiping's skin was red and steaming. The solar bulwark inside his body was also activated, it emitted an ancient mythical aura. The illusion of an enormous golden crow appeared behind Suiping's back. The girl was shocked to see that. She could tell that the aura inside Suiping's body was even older than that of the Twilight Deity King. It belonged to an even older creature. Is he truly the Twilight Deity King's heir? The girl's eyes flashed. She merely fed pills to Suiping without saying a word. Those supplements would strengthen him. Suiping swallowed all the pills, and his body trembled at times, with occasional rumbling noises. His body was becoming increasingly harder, and the hot air he was releasing had covered him completely, making him look like a steam train. Great! While standing in the middle of the accumulated steam, Suiping felt that his body was overflowing with power, but he felt that he could still continue. The vortices inside his body became more and more condensed and looked like planets. The astral power within them had already slowed down, turning from gas into liquid. Suiping snapped the corks on the bottles, then chewed and swallowed the pills they contained. Boom! A significant amount of astral power was flowing into his limbs. Suiping felt that he could reach the fate state with the astral power. He could sense the bottleneck above the bridge, and he could break it at any time. However, he chose not to jump the gun and break through. Instead, he compressed all his astral power into liquid inside his cells. The building foundation pill also helped in further consolidating the bridge that Suiping constructed. Suiping felt that the bridge was ascending as more and more pills were swallowed, it would soon turn into a mountain. The bottleneck was right at the top of the mountain, the bridge could simply hit and break it. Closing his eyes, Suiping controlled the bridge with his best efforts and further compressed it. Suiping's mind became agile and inspired thanks to the pill that increased his power of understanding, allowing him to capture many subtleties. He had a strange feeling while he compressed the bridge. Very soon, the strange feeling became stronger, until he had an epiphany. He had attained a new law, fusion in the water class. Everything could be fused. Suiping kept on fusing the power of the pills with that new law, making the bridge harder and indestructible. You still haven't broken through. The girl was surprised, considering the number of pills Suiping had consumed. Even a pig should have advanced after taking that many of them. She could easily tell that Suiping was still in the void state, yet he released such a magnificent amount of astral power. She even felt that someone a realm higher than him could be maimed by a gentle touch of his. He already has the power of the upper deities who master laws. He's even stronger than most upper deities. How can his body store such an amount of power? It's so horrifying. Despite her high level, the girl was indeed surprised by Suiping's weird phenomena. She had never seen anything as horrifying as him. He probably would have defeated the geniuses on the talented deities ranking. She then thought about many things from the olden times as she remembered that ranking. She was still appalled by the Twilight Deity King's side back then. She traveled across the world with him, met countless young geniuses and explored plenty of dangerous places. Buzzing! Suiping's body hummed again. The liquid astral power inside his cells had been compressed to the limit and turned into a fiber-like solid, which was akin to mist but actually tangible. There was more and more fibered astral power on the cell walls that the space inside them became smaller and smaller. Suiping continued swallowing the pills, which turned into scorching energy, to then convert into magnificent astral power that filled his cells. The fibered astral power was accumulated and his cells were entirely filled up. His cells became like spheres of astral power. This is the real astral body state. During the training, Suiping suddenly entered a meditative status. He could clearly sense all the organs and cells inside his body, he could even control each of the cells individually. That was mind-boggling and hard to believe. It had to be noted that ordinary people could hardly control their ears to move. Cultivators had a higher control over their bodies, but it was already their best to move their bones. Suiping, however, was able to control his every cell, which meant that his body could be altered if he wanted to. He could assume any form in the world anytime he wanted. That morphing ability was the greatest form. Not having a definite shape meant that he could be fearsome in melee battles. It would be impossible for his enemy to imagine how he could attack. The astral body state was the third level of the chaos star chart. Above the astral body state was the astral painting state. Suiping had originally thought that he wouldn't attain the astral body until he advanced into the star state or become a star lord. The combat ability of each level was described when he practiced the chaos star chart. Normally speaking, only star state warriors could have accumulated enough astral power for them to reach the astral body state. And yet, the gifts from the divine residence had allowed Suiping to accomplish this while still in the void state. All the cells in his body had turned into veritable stars of astral power. However, he had barely entered the astral body state. If he wanted to make further progress, he would have to control each of his cells and create internal circulations within each one. To reach the astral painting state, you would have to draw ancient star maps with soul power. Just like arrays, star maps would allow him to unleash incredible divine power. My body seems to be stronger. Suiping carefully examined himself and then sensed that his body had indeed gone through drastic changes. If he were to fight the purple-robed young man again, he would defeat him with a single punch. Suiping's strength had increased by more than 10 times in that short period. It was a qualitative leap. Fuse. Suiping didn't stop. He seized the opportunity to continue absorbing and training. He fused the laws such as cutting and god of lightning into the bridge and consolidated it. More and more laws were fused into the bridge, they formed magnificent power which surrounded it like a guardian. Suiping became even more intimidating and immeasurable. He can still endure it. The girl was surprised and solemn. Even though she had met a lot of people, Suiping was still an unparalleled being in his level. He could count as an astonishing genius in every age. Half an hour later, Suiping gradually stopped. The bridge inside his body had been fully constructed. It couldn't be further compressed, even with the fusion law. He would reach the fate state if he only took one step further. Suiping chose to wait until he absorbed the fruits of law on the leader girl's tree, so that he could have the greatest accumulations after he broke the bottleneck with laws. You can have the rest. Suiping threw the other divine pills to the little skeleton and the dark dragon hound. He also summoned the purple python, the white-scaled dragon, and the void bug that he rarely took out. Hey! The girl was rather stunned to see the void bug. An abyss creature? You enslaved an abyss creature. Abyss creature. Suiping raised his eyebrows and looked at the void bug which had already become fat. He had captured it in the demigod burial. It was an alien being that invaded the demigod burial. He didn't know that the girl would also recognize it. So to speak, that creature actually had a long history. It's a creature from the heavenly pit. I didn't know you had one, said the girl solemnly. Has another heavenly pit appeared? Are the abyss creatures here again? Stunned, Suiping asked, is it a creature from the heavenly pit? So, the Twilight Deity King blocked the heavenly pit because he wanted to stop such things. The girl shook her head. It's just a creature that lived in the heavenly pit, but it had the weird trait of being able to eat anything, even the gods were scared of them. However, this one is too small to be a threat. It's still cyan-colored and hasn't evolved yet. Speaking of which, I've given you a lot of things. Why have you still not evolved? Suiping looked at the void bug as if it were a disappointing child. The void bug. It looked at Suiping in frustration and waved its claws, claiming innocence. What a useless guy. Suiping rolled his eyes. It had soaked in Joanna's spring for such a long time, yet it evolved so slowly. He wondered why it had been regarded as a plague in the demigod burial. You're lowering the average dangerousness of your bug kind. The girl looked at Suaping but stayed silent. She sensed that this self-proclaimed inheritor of the deity king had a lot of secrets. However, she wasn't reluctant to give the pills away, which were of a low level and would soon expire in any case. Suaping would be unable to digest the pills that only the golden deities could take, and he would simply die in the process. Assorted pills were then fed to the little skeleton, the inferno dragon and the other pets. They all had a great time. We are technically family, since you're a pill that my ancestor created. I wonder, how should I call you? Suaping finally had the time to ask the girl's name. The girl said casually, just call me Green Lady. Do you have any plans, Green Lady? There will be more intruders coming this way, now that the divine residence has been exposed. The three golden deities will surely come by soon, looking for my ancestors' relics, said Suaping worriedly. It's fine if they just want the relics, but I'm afraid that in their greed they'll ruin my ancestor's body. Green Lady raised her eyebrows and said after a moment of silence, I've lingered here for too long. I was also greatly exhausted in that battle. I'm no match for three golden deities, Suaping was regretful after hearing her reply. He had planned to trick the girl into fighting for the deity king's legacies in his stead. The three ascendant state experts would certainly not be happy about it. But who could refuse the legacies of a celestial state expert? Not just the legacies of a celestial state expert, even the legacy of several billion astral coins was enough to turn brothers against each other. Emotions were the most vulnerable things in the world. But then again, emotions were also the most indestructible things. However, while I'm not strong enough to deal with them, there's a couple of guys who can. We'll leave the rest of the pills for later. Let's go meet them, Green Lady said. Suaping's eyes glittered. Are there other seniors inside this divine residence? Sort of. Green Lady didn't explain. Suaping didn't ask further. He simply had his pets stop absorbing the pills, then merged with the inferno dragon and the little skeleton to keep himself at his strongest status. After that, he stored the purple python and the void bug in the summoning space. Let's go. Green Lady waved her hand, and all the pills were gone, collected in another space. She then released a power that enshrouded Suaping. Suaping then found himself in the middle of the void. There was a floating palace in front of him. Boom! A huge explosion burst out in front of the palace. Dozens of people were fighting outside of the floating palace. 3 of them were half-beasts, which emitted a horrifying power. They were all accompanied by mountainous beasts. Suaping quickly noticed that one of the beasts was exactly the dragon elder who had appeared outside the divine residence before it was opened. The 3 horrifying men were undoubtedly the 3 ascendant experts that had entered the divine residence earlier. Close to 8 shadows were fighting against them. Those shadows were changing constantly during the battle, morphing into long spears and sharp blades. How is this possible? Green Lady's expression changed. She then took Suaping further. All of them have mounts and spiritual beasts of golden deity level. Her face looked awful. She didn't see that coming. Suaping was briefly stunned. He instantly realized that she wasn't familiar with the battle pet system and thought that there would only be 3 golden deities. As a matter of fact, the 3 ascendant state experts plus their pets would count as a dozen golden deities. Even though not all those pets were in the ascendant state, they were still horrifying. Their opponents they're the top artifacts that the deity king had collected. Suaping was lost for words, not expecting Green Lady's helpers to be the artifacts. Those artifacts were intelligent and could fight while in human shape. They probably had ascendant fighting capability since they had yet to be defeated. Unfortunately, the deity king's unparalleled artifact was damaged, otherwise it could have suppressed them. Green Lady seemed angry. Suaping then realized it was unrealistic to compete for legacies with those experts. He secretly heaved a sigh, but he wasn't too disappointed. Even though there was some regret, he had indeed looted enough things during the trip. Suaping turned around and said telepathically, "Senior Green Lady, since things are like this, why don't we just leave this place?" If he could take the girl away, Suaping felt that she would be as good as any of the remaining legacies. After all, she was a divine pill that could increase the chance of becoming a king. The Ascendant State experts probably didn't know that there was such an incredible divine pill in that place. They had gone straight to the treasury in search of legacies. If only one Ascendant had made the trip, he probably would have thoroughly investigated every palace, but the three Ascendant State experts were keeping each other in check. None of them wanted to miss getting the most valuable treasure that was oftentimes the one with the most protection. As a result, they had missed that great divine pill. "I have myself to blame for this." Suaping smiled bitterly. Had he seen this coming, he wouldn't have let her take him here, he would have opted to search for treasures in other places. There were treasures everywhere in the divine residence. Suaping wouldn't regret it even if he couldn't find the deity king's legacies. It was unrealistic to take some away right under the noses of three Ascendant State experts. However, since Green Lady was determined to watch the battle and Suaping couldn't abandon her, he had to watch with her. Soon, the situation of the battle changed. There was a flaw in the formation that the artifacts had established, the three Ascendants and their pets breached it. Very soon, a sword dimmed and was knocked tens of thousands of meters away. The three experts seized the opportunity to press on, the other artifacts were instantly crushed and seriously damaged. "Senior Green Lady, we should go. I'm afraid we won't be able to escape if they notice us," Suaping hurriedly persuaded her. Green Lady was also aware that her side was losing. She said sorrowfully, "I have a stealth technique that the deity king taught me. Normal golden deities cannot notice me." "Fine. I'll go after I take a look at the heavenly pit." "Sure." Suaping was relieved to see that she was finally convinced. Green Lady released a mist of energy that shrouded Suaping, before she turned around and flew away. By then, the artifacts in the distance were gradually subdued by the Ascendant experts and stored in their small worlds. Whoosh! The scene before Suaping's eyes changed, he then found himself in an ancient battlefield instead of the misty palace. Countless bodies were scattered in the void, as if frozen in time. Many of the bodies were ancient warrior deities who fought under the Twilight Deity King's command. There were also behemoths, some were enslaved spiritual beasts and some were invading monsters. Suaping even saw the bodies of the worms from the deep caves. Those worms were as tall as 2-floor buildings, their golden, hideous shells and their wings were broken. In addition, a lot of shattered weapons could be seen. Some had broken blades, and some had lost their grip. It wasn't hard to imagine how ferocious the battle must have been. There was a man at the end of the battlefield. Suaping felt as if 10,000 years had passed when he saw the man. It was a magnificent giant that looked like a tall mountain. His feet were firmly on the ground and his head was in the clouds. He was carrying the sky on his back. His head was lowered and his hair was unkempt. There was endless damage in his broken armor. Even though there was no sign of life on the giant, Suaping felt as if he were alive, remaining immortal in the long river of time. Lum-dum, lum-dum. Suaping's heart was pounding beyond his control. He felt even more awed than when he saw the Golden Crow Elder, because the latter had concealed his pressure when they met, while the giant's body was still terrifying even though he was gone. "Deity King," Green Lady started to shiver the moment she saw the man, tears flowed from her eyes. She was pained to see the wounds on his body. She fought as part of the vanguard in that battle, but she was asked to fall back after she was wounded. The Deity King ordered her to wait for the outcome of the battle inside the Pill Palace. She had waited for millions of years. And yet, the result was that he was already gone. "You told me to wait, and I did," Green Lady bit her lips, with tears on her cheeks and infinite sorrow in her eyes. "You promised that you would take me to other worlds so I could enjoy the candies there." Green Lady held her chest, it hurt so much that she could hardly breathe. She could almost feel how her heart was beating. The nerves all over her body seemed to be taut. The pain was so severe that her limbs were cramping. Green Lady bent her back and wept soundlessly. Suaping looked at the unworldly pill deity in a trance. He found it hard to imagine how deep a connection of millions of years could be, and how painful such a departure was. He could sense that the pain was cutting deep into the bones and even her soul. Suaping was silent. He didn't try to comfort her, because he knew that any verbal consolation at that point would be meaningless. The magnificent giant was none other than the Twilight Deity King, the master of that divine residence, an ultimate expert in the celestial state. He remained daunting even though he had been dead for millions of years. Very soon, Suaping noticed a dark halo in the void behind the deity king's back. There seemed to be a huge hole over there. Intrigued, Suaping couldn't help but ask, "Is that the heavenly pit?" Green Lady was still too lost in her grief to hear what he said. Seeing that, Suaping didn't try to disturb her again. He looked around and fixed his eyes on the worm bodies from the deep caves. He said, "I remember that your kind has a liking for cannibalism, right? Go eat them." The void bug was shocked by the Twilight Deity King's magnificent body and didn't take a breath of relief until after finding out that he was already dead. After hearing what Suaping had said, it then noticed the bodies of its kin and instantly widened its eyes in disbelief. Disbelief was quickly replaced by ecstasy. It lunged at the nearest golden beetle and bit it. It started from the internal organs inside the broken body, but even they were extremely tensile too. The void bug had a hard time eating it, as if it were chewing uncooked beef. However, it was smart enough to swallow them without much biting. After all, its gastric acid was much more vicious than its sharp teeth. Hey! Suaping then detected an enormous force. He was so shocked that his hair was standing up. He turned around, but didn't see anything. "Senior, the three intruders must be approaching." He could tell who they were, although he didn't see anyone. Who could be so unstoppable inside that divine residence except those three experts? They were moving like stars, causing a huge gravity pull as they moved, and Suaping was like a grain of dust. Had it not been for Green Lady's stealth technique, he had no doubt he would have been detected. The Green Lady came back from her grief and changed her expression upon hearing his telepathic message. She made a quick decision and sensed the circumstances. Whoosh! The void bug was gone along with the body it was eating. Both were absorbed into her small world, even faster than when Suaping summoned it. In the meantime, she disappeared from that spot with Suaping in tow, reappearing inside the torn remains of a dragon. A few men rushed over 3 seconds after they vanished. Indeed, the three experts had arrived. Their pets were following them, but those of the ancillary kind had been put away. Only the ascendant state pets stayed by their side in case of ambushers. Hey! The one in the lead glanced across the battlefield, which was littered with corpses. He frowned, but his expression remained unchanged until he saw the magnificent giant at the end of the battlefield, one that looked like an ancient god. He became much more solemn, and secretly excited. The other two ascendant experts were the same. They looked at each other and saw wariness in the other's eyes. A mere quick glance was enough to realize that the magnificent man was probably a real supreme being with a cultivation beyond the ascendant state. The three experts looked at the Twilight Deity King's body and made remarks with mixed feelings. That body surely belonged to the past master of the divine residence. He has an intimidating aura even after being dead for such a long time. Truly an immortal. That's the celestial state. It's too far away for us to reach. Even a man as strong as him had died. Guys, this is a well-preserved body of a celestial state warrior. There must be great secrets hidden in this body. Maybe we can figure out celestial state mysteries through the structures inside his body. Why don't we divide the body evenly into 3 parts, so that we won't need to compete amongst ourselves, said a smiling scholarly old man whose hair was entirely white. Another red-haired young man raised his eyebrows and said casually, "It's so well preserved. Wouldn't it be a shame to destroy it? We should explore it together first before we discuss how to split it up." Sounds good. The last one, a woman with deep blue hair, agreed with the proposal. She had fair skin and a pretty face, there was iciness and pride in her eyes, which seemed to have gone through countless years. Now that they had reached a consensus, they wasted no time and rushed to where the Twilight Deity King's body was. They didn't keep their voice down during their conversation. Maybe their attention was too focused on the celestial corpse that they didn't check the environment. Suiping had heard everything they said, they had spoken in the common tongue. Suiping had an indescribable feeling. The Twilight Deity King was surely a great hero when he was alive, yet his remains were going to be cut to pieces. How humiliating was that? However, there was nothing he could say. After all, the three experts were there precisely to hunt for treasure. What did they say? Green Lady turned around and looked at Suiping. She noticed Suiping's change of expression and figured that he understood what they had said. Well, Suiping didn't know how to respond. Considering her feelings for her master, she would probably burst into a rage if she knew what they were up to. Charging recklessly at them would only get her and himself killed. After all, the Ascendant experts had allowed the lesser cultivators to enter because they could merely scavenge. They would definitely search his body and kill him if they found out that he had managed to reach such a deep place. About that, while Suiping considered how to phrase it, a shocking explosion burst out. Suiping and Green Lady looked at the source of the sound simultaneously, only to see that the Twilight Deity King's chest was radiating. The ruined armor reached its limits at that moment and fell apart. There was a boom, then a dragon roared and flew out of the Deity King's broken chest, before it flew back in. Suiping was stunned. Having seen the three experts' quick consensus, he had thought that they would split the loot in peace, not expecting they would start fighting right after they entered the body. It was true that no one could hold back when in front of ultimate treasures, no matter how strong they were. Self-control and greed weren't dependent on a person's level. Chapter 830 The Sky is Falling. Senior. Senior. Suiping invoked his own strength to resist the pressure, before he hurriedly said, "Don't be rash. They will attack you if you show up. You're an unparalleled divine pill. They will swallow you if they defeat you, all to strengthen themselves. You must not let them. The Twilight Deity King would never wish for you to die for nothing if he were alive." Her green hair was fluttering as if she would have gone mad. Green tears were flowing out of her eyes, those tears were the pill power from inside her body and were highly powerful. "Senior, if they were to eat you, they would be able to ruin the Deity King's body even more. Try to hold back." Suiping did his best to seize her hand and talk sense into her. Green Lady shivered and finally calmed down. The madness of destruction in her eyes gradually left, while she gritted her teeth and contained herself. Suiping was slightly relieved after seeing that she regained her rationality. He said, "Senior, revenge is a dish best served cold. We'll settle the score with them when we're capable, please don't be rash right now. You're the greatest treasure that the Twilight Deity King has left." She changed her expression when she heard the greatest treasure and looked at Suiping. The sorrow and pain in her eyes were enough to pierce through a heart of stone. Even someone like Suiping felt the urge to protect her. "But I can't do anything for him." The Green Lady gritted her teeth. Her tears kept running down, but she gradually concealed all her aura. She looked at the battlefield and saw the three experts fiercely mauling each other inside the giant warrior's chest. Two of them seemed to be attacking the red-haired young man together. Their battle gradually damaged the corpse's chest until it fully fell apart. Even though he had been a celestial state expert, he had exhausted all his power in the last battle before his death. His body was no longer able to resist the attacks of three ascendants. Suiping also watched the scene with mixed feelings. He remembered what the ghosts had said in the peach orchard. The Twilight Deity King had created a future for humankind, yet his body was being destroyed by one of the future generations of human beings. How ironic was that? The Deity King's armor was heavily damaged in the battle ages before, but his body remained intact. And yet, it had been destroyed right then. Senior, let's not watch any longer. We should get out of here. Suaping watched the battle and noticed how it was becoming fiercer. His eyes couldn't keep up with their movements any longer, their divine techniques also carried a radiating power that stung his eyes. He wanted to take Green Lady away, in case she lost control of herself again. Green Lady clenched her fists, the grief in her eyes had been replaced by an overwhelming hatred that was etched deep into her soul. Boom! At that moment, one of the Ascendant State experts took out a long mist-like spear he had just subdued moments earlier. He held the long spear and stabbed through the wings of an Ascendant State phoenix. The aftermath of the attack left a wound several hundred meters long on the Twilight Deity King's chest. The weapon that the Deity King had once collected was being used to destroy his own body. Green Lady shivered as she witnessed this. Suddenly, she put on a crazy smile and mumbled as if possessed, "They'll die. They will surely die." The Deity King blocked the heavenly pit with his body to protect humankind. The heavenly pit will be opened if they destroy his body. The more she talked, the scarier she looked. She didn't look like a lady at all, she was more like a devil. Fury often led to madness. Suaping was stunned by what she said, then narrowed his eyes. He couldn't help but ask, what will happen if the heavenly pit is opened? Suaping didn't dare to imagine what was behind the ancient deity king's body. He looked at the dark area behind the body. Just as he thought, there seemed to be a great, radiating black hole with the Twilight Deity King's body as the center. However, there were only a few inconspicuous shadows circumventing his body. Die. All of them will die. Green Lady laughed creepily while tears kept falling from her eyes. She knew how devastating the battle ages before had been, how many experts had fought, and how determined they were. Still, their efforts turned out to be useless. She hated those three human beings and regretted that the Deity King's sacrifice had been done in vain. Suaping had goosebumps all over his body. What could have been blocked by a celestial warrior? If it came out, who could once again stop it? Would another celestial arrive? However, there were very few of them in the entire Federation. Those three guys are making a big mess. Suaping was rather angry too. They were in the Ascendant State, yet they were bringing a disaster. Senior, we should go now. Suaping said quickly. His store would be the safest hideout if matters were truly dangerous. Green Lady turned around and stared at him, as if she were judging him and all of humankind. His heart skipped a beat when he saw her eyes. He had a bad feeling, but he didn't flinch as he looked back at her with utmost sincerity. The stare lasted for a long time. She eventually withdrew her gaze and said, "Whether or not you're the Deity King's descendant, you have a promising future with the secrets you carry. I can take you away and help you become a king. But before that, we have to sign a contract. Once you become a king, you must search for the lost chaotic realm of the undead and find the Deity King's soul." Suaping was stunned and then quickly said, "I promise you I will." He felt puzzled by her proposal. Is the chaotic realm of the undead lost? He had access to the place via the system. Did the system have other channels? The chaotic realm of the undead disappeared in a battle during the primordial times, said the Green Lady with a gloomy expression, "Otherwise, I would have gone there to search for my senior's soul a long time ago. I would have helped him reforge his body and reclaim his throne. I promise you that I'll help you find my ancestor's soul," said Suaping solemnly. He didn't confess that he had a way to go to the chaotic realm of the undead, though. After all, Green Lady believed it was already lost. She would only think he was lying if he claimed he was able to go there, especially when he was that weak. Talk is cheap. We'll sign a contract, but this isn't the right place. Let's go, said Green Lady with a cold tone. Suaping gave her a bitter smile. Green Lady had obviously changed her attitude because of the actions of those three experts. She became unfriendly, if not hostile, towards human beings. Boom! Exactly at that moment, a huge noise was heard. Suaping shivered, even his soul had been shocked by the noise. He turned his head around, only to narrow his eyes. He saw that the Twilight Deity King's chest had completely burst open, and the three ascendants were fighting in the void. They evidently didn't want to cause more damages to that celestial state body, either. Hey! Suaping's expression had a sudden change. He saw a black vortex revealing itself deep inside the Twilight Deity King's torn chest. On the other side of the vortex was a vague and distant place, but it could be seen that the place was a barren and desolate world, which was brimming with a weird aura of death. Is that the heavenly pit?